What you're about to witness isn't just a courtroom case, it's a story that will break your heart and restore your faith in humanity. A 58-year-old man walks into Judge Frank Caprio's courtroom. His coat is held together with safety pins. His shoes, wrapped in duct tape, barely hold out the winter cold. 3 layers of clothing can't hide the truth. He's been living on the streets. He's not a criminal. He's not violent. He's here for trespassing, because 2 nights ago, when the temperature hit 15 degrees, he was found asleep in the basement of an abandoned building, a place that kept him alive when the streets could have taken his life. The fine? $335. For most of us, that's a bill we could pay. For him, it's an impossible fortune. Judge Caprio looks at him, compassion in his eyes, and asks softly, "Why were you in that building?" The man takes a breath, his voice barely steady. "Your Honor, I had nowhere else to go. It was either freeze to death or try to survive. I chose to live." 6 words. I had nowhere else to go. And in that moment, the entire courtroom falls silent. But what happens next? No one in that room, not even Judge Caprio, could have predicted. Because this homeless man, this quiet, broken figure in duct-tape shoes, used to stand in front of classrooms, teaching Shakespeare, teaching Steinbeck, shaping young minds. And 25 years ago, he taught Judge Caprio's own son. The realization hits like a wave. A man who once inspired students, now standing before one of them, pleading not for freedom, but for a little human understanding. Judge Caprio leans forward, and what follows isn't just compassion, it's restoration. Because when the law meets humanity, and judgment meets empathy, miracles happen right in front of our eyes. What unfolds next will remind you why millions around the world trust Judge Caprio's courtroom. Because here, justice isn't cold. It's alive. It listens. It feels. So before we dive into this powerful story, hit that subscribe button, because what you're about to see proves something we all need to remember. That sometimes the people who've lost everything are the very ones who once gave us everything. And that real justice, the kind that heals, still lives in Judge Frank Caprio's courtroom.
It's a Monday morning, 9:45, January 15th. Providence Municipal Court is colder than usual. The heating system struggling against the winter wind, rattling the old building's windows. Judge Frank Caprio sits at the bench reviewing files, a space heater running near his feet because even judges get cold. The case file reads, Michael James Parker, age 58, charged with criminal trespassing at 847 Cranston Street. Fine, $250 plus $85 court costs. But there's a note from the arresting officer clipped to the file that makes Judge Caprio read more carefully. Defendant was found in basement of abandoned building during coldest night of year. Building owner not pressing charges, but city ordinance requires citation. Defendant was cooperative, apologetic, and clearly homeless. No prior record. Officer recommends leniency. The bailiff calls the case, and Michael Parker enters slowly, carefully, like someone whose body hurts with every step. He's thin, too thin, the kind of weight loss that comes from missed meals stacking up over months. His hands are chapped and red from cold exposure, but it's his eyes that Judge Caprio notices most. Intelligent eyes, sad eyes, eyes that have seen better days. "Mr. Parker," Judge Caprio begins gently, "you're charged with criminal trespassing at an abandoned building on Cranston Street. How do you plead?" Michael's voice is quiet but clear, educated. "Guilty, Your Honor. I was there. I shouldn't have been. But I can explain the circumstances if you'll allow me." "Please do." Michael takes a breath. "Your Honor, I've been homeless for 14 months. I usually stay at the emergency shelter on Broad Street, but they have limited capacity. On the night of January 12th, the shelter was full. The temperature that night dropped to 15 degrees. I walked for 2 hours looking for somewhere warm." He pauses, remembering the library closes at 6, the bus station doesn't allow people to stay overnight, the hospital waiting room, They ask you to leave if you're not sick enough to be admitted. I tried 3 churches, but their doors were locked. By 11 p.m., I couldn't feel my fingers anymore. Judge Caprio is listening intently, no longer looking at the file. I saw the abandoned building, Michael continues. The door was already broken. I went into the basement because it was warmer than outside. Just barely, but enough to survive. I found some cardboard boxes to lay on for insulation from the concrete floor. I was planning to leave at first light before anyone found me, but I fell asleep. The police officer who found me was very kind. He gave me his lunch and a hand warmer before taking me in. Michael looks directly at Judge Caprio. Your Honor, I'm not making excuses. I broke the law. I entered a building I had no right to be in. I'm prepared to accept whatever penalty you impose. I just wanted you to understand that my choice was between breaking the law and freezing to death. I chose to live. I hope you can understand that. The courtroom is absolutely silent. Even the court reporter has stopped typing. Mr. Parker, Judge Caprio says, his voice soft, tell me how you became homeless. Michael's composure cracks slightly. My wife, Susan, was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer 3 years ago. We had insurance, but it didn't cover everything. Experimental treatments, medications that weren't formulary approved, travel to specialists. We used our savings, then we used our retirement, then we took out a second mortgage on our house. He wipes his eyes. Susan died 18 months ago. By then, we were $200,000 in debt. I sold the house to pay what I could, sold our car, sold everything. But it wasn't enough. I declared bankruptcy, lost everything except what I could carry. What was your profession, Mr. Parker, before all this? I was a teacher, Michael says, and there's pride in
His voice despite everything. High school English, Providence Classical High School, 28 years. I taught Shakespeare, Dickens, Morrison, Steinbeck. I had 300 students every year. I loved it. He pulls something from his jacket pocket, a laminated ID badge, worn and faded but still readable. Providence Classical High School, Michael J. Parker, English Department. I keep it, Michael says quietly, because it reminds me that I used to be someone, that I had a purpose, that I mattered. Judge Caprio reaches for the badge. May I see that? Michael hands it up. Judge Caprio studies it, and something shifts in his expression. Recognition. Mr. Parker, Judge Caprio says slowly, did you teach at Classical in the late 90s? Yes, Your Honor, 1995 to 2018. Judge Caprio's hand trembles slightly as he holds the badge. Did you have a student named David Caprio, class of 2001? Michael's eyes widen. David Caprio? Yes, I remember David. Bright kid. Loved The Great Gatsby. Wrote an incredible essay on the American dream. He was one of my best students. Judge Caprio's voice is thick with emotion. Mr. Parker, David is my son. You were his favorite teacher. He came home every day talking about your class, about how you made literature come alive, about how you saw potential in him that he didn't see in himself. The courtroom is frozen in this moment. You wrote him a recommendation letter for Brown University, Judge Caprio continues. He still has it. You said he had the mind of a scholar and the heart of a poet. That letter helped him get accepted. He's a professor now, English literature at URI. He became a teacher because of you, Mr. Parker. Michael's face crumples. He's crying now, the kind of tears that come from being reminded of who you used to be before life broke you. I'm glad, Michael manages to say. I'm so glad David did well. He deserved it. Judge Caprio stands up from the bench, something he does only in the most extraordinary cases. He walks around to the front, eliminating the barrier between them. Mr. Parker, Michael, you taught my son to love learning. You shaped his future. You changed his life. And now you're standing in my courtroom, homeless,
because you chose to save your wife instead of your financial security. You're here because you chose to stay alive on the coldest night of the year." Judge Caprio's voice becomes firm. "This case is dismissed. Completely dismissed. No fine, no penalty, no record." The courtroom erupts in whispers. Michael looks stunned. "But I'm not done," Judge Caprio continues. "Bailiff Rodriguez, please call Crossroads, Rhode Island. Tell them I'm personally requesting emergency housing for Mr. Parker today, not tomorrow, today." He turns to the prosecutor. "The state has no objection to this dismissal, correct?" The prosecutor stands quickly. "No objection, Your Honor. Full support." Judge Caprio reaches into his jacket and pulls out his wallet. He removes $500 bills and places them in Michael's hand. "This is not from Judge Caprio," he says. "This is from David's father, the man whose son you taught to dream. Take this. Get warm clothes, get good meals, get what you need while we find you permanent housing." "Your Honor, I can't," Michael protests weakly. "You can and you will," Judge Caprio says firmly. "You gave my son an education. Let me give you a chance to rebuild." A woman in the gallery stands up. "Your Honor, my name is Patricia Chen. I'm an attorney. Mr. Parker, if you're willing, I'd like to help you navigate bankruptcy discharge and see if we can address any remaining debt issues. Pro bono." Another man stands. "Frank Dartino. I own D. Martino Construction. Mr. Parker, I need someone to manage my office. Filing, phones, ordering supplies. It's not teaching, but it's work. $20 an hour. Starts whenever you're ready." A woman in her 40s stands. "I'm Sarah Wellington from Second Chance Wardrobe. Mr. Parker, we provide professional clothing for people re-entering the workforce. Please come by. Everything you need, free of charge." One by one, people stand. A doctor offers free health care. A dentist offers services. A woman from a local church offers immediate shelter. Tonight, the director of an adult education center offers space if Michael wants to teach again, even just one class. Within 5 minutes, Michael Parker goes from homeless and facing a fine he can't pay to having housing, employment, legal help, clothing, healthcare, and a community of support. Judge Caprio is crying openly now, not bothering to hide it. This is what justice looks like. This is what community looks like. A man who spent his life teaching others is now being taught that he still matters, that he's still valued, that he's still one of us. He turns to Michael. "Mr. Parker, you taught my son that literature matters because it teaches us empathy. Today, this courtroom is showing you the empathy you taught them to have. Do you understand? You created this. You spent 28 years teaching young people to see the humanity in others. Today, they're seeing the humanity in you." Michael can't speak. He's sobbing, overwhelmed by the sudden reversal from despair to hope. "Court is adjourned," Judge Caprio says. "Mr. Parker, you're not leaving this courthouse alone. We're all going to make sure you get exactly where you need to be." As the courtroom empties, Michael approaches Judge Caprio one more time. "Your Honor, I don't know what to say." "Say thank you and pay it forward," Judge Caprio says. "When you're back on your feet, and you will be, remember this moment. Remember that people helped you and help someone else." "I will," Michael promises. "I swear I will." That evening, Judge Caprio calls his son, David, at Gari. "David, it's your father. Do you remember Mr. Parker, your English teacher from classical?" "Of course, Dad. Mr. Parker was incredible. Why?" "He was in my courtroom today, homeless, charged with trespassing because he was trying not to freeze to death." There's a long silence on the phone. "Dad, no, not Mr. Parker. He was one of the best teachers I ever had." "I know," Judge Caprio says. "I dismissed the case, and the courtroom came
together to help him. But David, I think he needs to hear from you. He needs to know that the kids he taught remember him, that we valued him." "Give me his number," David says immediately. "I'm calling him tonight." 2 hours later, Michael Parker's donated cell phone rings. It's a number he doesn't recognize. "Hello, Mr. Parker?
It's David Caprio, your former student from your American literature class in 2000. Michael sits down on the bed in the emergency housing where he's spending his first night indoors in weeks. David, is that really you? It's really me, Mr. Parker. My dad just told me what happened. I had to call you. I had to tell you something I should have told you years ago. David's voice is emotional. Mr. Parker, you changed my life. When I was 17, I thought I wanted to be a lawyer like my dad, but you showed me what teaching could be. You made me fall in love with words and ideas. You saw something in me I didn't see in myself. Every day I stand in front of a classroom, I'm trying to be the teacher you were. Michael is crying again. But these are different tears. These are tears of being remembered, of mattering, of having made a difference. I became a professor because of you, David continues. And it's not just me. I've talked to other students from your classes over the years. Marcus Johnson, he's a librarian now because of you. Alina Ruiz, she writes for the Providence Journal. James Chen, he teaches middle school English. We all became who we are because you taught us to think, to question, to care about ideas. You remember them? Michael asks, amazed. Of course I remember them. And they remember you. Mr. Parker, you taught hundreds of kids over 28 years. You think they all forgot you just because you fell on hard times? You're still their teacher. You're still the person who shaped them. Michael covers his face with one hand, overwhelmed. Mr. Parker, I want to do something, David says. I want to organize a reunion. All your former students will get together, celebrate you, and help you get fully back on your feet. Not because you need charity, but because you're family. You're our teacher. Teachers don't get left behind. Within a week, David Caprio has created a Facebook group, Students of Mr. Parker Classical High English. Within 24 hours, it has over 200 members, former students sharing memories, photos, essays they still have from his classes. The stories flood in. Mr. Parker helps me apply to college when my parents didn't know how. Mr. Parker stayed after school every day to tutor me in writing because I was failing. Mr. Parker bought me a copy of To Kill a Mockingbird because my family couldn't afford it. Mr. Parker wrote my recommendation letter and told me I could be anything I wanted to be. A GoFundMe is created. Help Mr. Parker, our teacher. The goal is set at $10,000 for a security deposit on an apartment and basic furnishings. Within 48 hours, it raises $43,000 from former students. 1 month later, Michael Parker walks into a classroom at the Providence Community Education Center. It's not classical high school. It's smaller, simpler, but it's a classroom. And there are 15 adults sitting at desks, waiting for their GED preparation English class to begin. Michael sets down his worn leather briefcase, donated by a former student. He turns to the whiteboard and writes his name. Good evening. I'm Mr. Parker. I'll be your English instructor this semester. Let me start by telling you something important. Every person in this room has a story, and every story matters. He looks at his students, sees their struggles in their faces, and continues. Some of you might think you're too old to learn. Some of you might think you've made too many mistakes to start over. I'm here to tell you that's not true. Because 6 weeks ago, I was homeless. I was sleeping in abandoned buildings. I had lost everything. I thought my story was over. The students look at him with new attention. But I'm standing here because people refused to give up on me, because a judge saw past my circumstances to who I used to be and who I could be again, because former students I taught decades ago remembered me and helped me, because a community decided I still mattered. Michael picks up a piece of chalk, the feel of it familiar in his hand after all this months. So tonight we're going to learn about sentence structure and paragraph development, but more than that, we're going to learn about resilience, about second chances, and about the power of education to transform lives, because it transformed mine, and it can transform yours. He smiles at his students, and for the first time in 18 months, he feels like himself again. Now, let's begin. 3 months after his court appearance, Michael Parker returns to Judge Caprio's courtroom, not as a defendant, but as a guest. He's wearing a suit donated by Second Chance Wardrobe. He's gained back 20 pounds from regular meals at his new apartment. He's clean-shaven, and his eyes, those intelligent, sad eyes, now hold something new. Hope. Your Honor, Michael says, standing at the podium where he once stood accused, I wanted to come back to tell you what's happened since that morning in January. Judge Caprio smiles. I've heard wonderful things, Mr. Parker. I'm teaching again, Michael says, his voice strong. 3 GED classes a week at the community center. I have 45 students, adults who thought they'd never finish their education. I'm helping them find their way. He pulls out a folder. These are thank you letters from my students. This one is from Maria, a 52-year-old woman who dropped out of high school at 16 to work. She just passed her GED exam. She wrote, Mr. Parker taught me that it's never too late to learn. Michael's voice is emotional. Your Honor, you gave me back my purpose. You reminded me that I am a teacher, not just a homeless man. You gave me the chance to do what I was meant
To do. Help people learn. Judge Caprio stands. Mr. Parker, you never stopped being a teacher. Even when you had nothing, even when you were sleeping in abandoned buildings, you were still the man who shaped young minds. Circumstances didn't change your character. They just tested it. Michael nods. I also wanted to give you this. He hands Judge Caprio an envelope. It's a letter from David. He wanted me to read it to you. Go ahead. Michael opens the letter and reads, Dad, watching you help Mr. Parker reminded me why I'm proud to be your son. You didn't just dismiss a case. You saw a human being who deserved dignity. You mobilized the community. You showed me that justice isn't just about laws. It's about compassion. Mr. Parker taught me to love learning. You taught me to love justice. I'm who I am because of both of you. With love and respect, David. Judge Caprio wipes his eyes. Tell my son I'm proud of him too. I already did, Michael says. He comes to my classes sometimes, guest lectures on literature. The students love him. He's an incredible teacher, just like his father is an incredible judge. After Michael leaves, the prosecutor approaches the bench. Your Honor, that was the most beautiful resolution I've seen in 20 years of practice. Judge Caprio nods. You know what struck me most? Michael never asked for help. He was prepared to accept his punishment. He was prepared to pay a fine he couldn't afford. He maintained his dignity even when he had nothing else. That's character. That's who he really is. And that's who we all should be. The prosecutor says, 6 months after his dismissal, Michael Parker is featured in the Providence Journal. From homeless to teacher again, one man's journey back. The article goes viral, shared thousands of times. Former students continue to reach out. Some send money. Some visit his classes. Some just send letters saying, thank you for believing in me when I was 15 and stupid. Michael frames one letter in particular. It's from a former student named Marcus Johnson, the one David mentioned who became a librarian. Mr. Parker, you taught me that books are windows into other lives. When I heard you were homeless, I realized you needed people to be windows into hope for you. I'm glad we could do that. You always said that what we learn shapes who we become. You taught me to be compassionate, to help others, to never forget where I came from. Thank you for teaching me that, and thank you for letting us help you. Love, Marcus. 1 year after his court appearance, Michael Parker stands in front of Providence Classical High School. He hasn't been here since the day he cleaned out his classroom in 2018, shortly before Susan died. The current principal, Dr. Martinez, meets him at the door. Mr. Parker, thank you for coming. Thank you for inviting me. Dr. Martinez walks him through familiar hallways to a classroom, room 217, Michael's old room. Inside, the walls are covered with photos, pictures of Michael with students over 28 years, awards from teaching excellence, newspaper clippings from when his students won writing competitions. What is this? Michael asks. This is the Michael J. Parker Memorial Classroom, Dr. Mr. Martinez says. When we heard your story, your former students raised money to dedicate this room in your honor. Every English class taught here will start with students learning about you, about your dedication, about your resilience, about how even when you lost everything, you came back to teaching because you believe in the power of education. Michael walks around the room, touching desks, looking at photos of students he remembers. "There's one more thing," Dr. Martinez says. She hands him a plaque. It reads, "The Michael J. Parker Excellence in Teaching Award, presented annually to a teacher who demonstrates extraordinary dedication to students, who sees potential in every learner, and who understands that teaching is not just about transferring knowledge, but about transforming lives." "This is too much," Michael says, overwhelmed. "It's not enough," Dr. Martinez corrects, "but it's a start. Mr. Parker, you touched hundreds of lives. Those lives are touching other lives. The impact you made doesn't end just because you faced hard times. It continues. It multiplies. That's the real legacy of a great teacher." Subscribe if you believe that teachers deserve better than being forgotten. Comment where you're watching from and tell us about a teacher who changed your life. Share this story with someone who needs to remember that hard times don't define us. How we respond to them does. Michael Parker entered Judge Caprio's courtroom expecting to be punished for trying to survive. He left with housing, employment, support, and most importantly, the reminder that he still matters. Judge Frank Caprio reminded the world that justice isn't measured in fines or sentences. It's measured in humanity. Because true justice doesn't just punish. It restores. It listens. It redeems. And in that courtroom, Michael Parker didn't just find mercy, he rediscovered himself. He proved that being a teacher isn't a job you lose when life collapses. It's a calling that never dies. Even when he had nothing, no home, no comfort, no hope, he still taught. Because teaching isn't about classrooms or paychecks. It's about faith. Faith in people, in change, and in second chances. Today, Michael Parker teaches 5 classes a week. He's helped over 200 adults earn their GED. He still volunteers at shelters, teaching those who've lost everything because he knows what it feels like to start from nothing. And every semester, on the first day of class, he tells his students about one cold night. The night he stood before Judge Caprio and was reminded that compassion can rebuild a life faster than any verdict can. Judge Caprio didn't just see a defendant that day. He saw potential. He saw a man who'd fallen, but could still rise. And because of that vision, hundreds of others now rise too. That's the legacy of Judge Frank Caprio. Justice with a heartbeat. The kind that doesn't just close cases, it reopens lives. If this story moved you, if you believe compassion can change destinies, then hit that subscribe button and share this story. Because here, on Case Closed, we don't just tell courtroom stories, we reveal the moments when justice becomes humanity.